Welcome to Unfiltered and Unstoppable with Rob Romesburg. Real strategies for real advisors, a podcast that dives into what it takes to scale a thriving financial practice. Each week, we'll discuss actionable strategies, tools, and insights to keep you ahead in today's financial landscape. From innovative products and powerful marketing tactics, you'll get unfiltered truth and unstoppable strategies. Let's get started by building your unstoppable financial practice today.
All right. Welcome back to Unfiltered and Unstoppable. I am your host, Rob Romesburg, and today we're going to be talking about something that almost every advisor assumes is being handled, but quietly causes some of the biggest financial, tax, and family disasters that I've ever seen in the business. And we're talking about something that's pretty generic, and that's beneficiary forms, not investments, not market risk, not portfolio construction, beneficiary forms. And here's a statement that might make you a little uncomfortable. Right now, as we sit, your client's beneficiary forms or designations are probably wrong. Not because you're careless, not because your clients are careless, not because they made bad decisions, but because they made decisions one time and then guess what? Life kept moving. They made the right decision at one point in time, the responsible decision, but then guess what? Since then, we've had marriages, divorces, kids, grandkids, blended families, started a business, sold a business, created a trust, tax laws changed, health changed. But guess what? Those beneficiary forms, they, they remained exactly the same throughout all those changes. And so today's episode is not necessarily about the generic beneficiary form, but it is about why beneficiary forms fail, where you as the advisor might unintentionally lose control, and the silent mistakes that might cost your families millions. And what we want to do is find out how can we turn this into one of the most valuable conversations that you will ever have with your clients. It's not about paperwork. It's not about the beneficiary form. This is about leadership, true leadership, and being able to show your clients that you are in control, you have their back, you are the one that they can count on in all of these scenarios and situations that we are going to discuss today. And that is really what we're talking about here today. So, what have I seen over the years? So, I, as many of you know, I've been in this business quite a while since 2002. Um, Over the years, I've seen the same patterns, and those same patterns just repeat for whatever reason. This is even with great advisors, with wonderful, responsible clients, disciplined clients. I've seen that the ex-spouse was still named the beneficiary years after the divorce. Um, Adult children added to a deed just to make it easy, wiping out possibly a step up in basis. Um, Retirement accounts blowing up what was otherwise a very solid estate plan. So in every single one of these cases, the clients thought they were fully prepared. They had wills, they had trusts, they had the advisor that they trusted. However, the beneficiary forms don't follow the intent, right? They follow whatever was last written down. And that's really the danger. what was written down last. And so what do we do? Well, first of all, beneficiaries quite simply fail for one main reason. They generally live outside the planning conversation for whatever reason. So your client may have mentally checked the box, meaning I have an estate plan, I did an estate plan, I named my beneficiary years ago. That's already handled. That's my favorite one. No, 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 no. That one's already that's already handled. But here's the thing that we've come to realize after all these years is that unfortunately beneficiary forms don't update themselves, right? They don't care about fairness. They don't care about taxes. They don't care about family dynamics. The only thing that they care about is the last designation, the last thing on file. And the advisors, great advisors even, don't miss this because they lack knowledge. Primarily, they miss it because their system isn't updated, meaning there's not a system for the beneficiary. And this, quite frankly, could cost millions, you a referral, you, the client's uh, beneficiaries, to stay with you. There are so many things that this could cost to where we've got to make sure that we have an absolute hold on this. Let's talk about the most common and misunderstood area out there, and that would be bank and brokerage accounts. So, one of my very first jobs was at a bank, and one of the very first things that we had to go through was understanding the titling of bank accounts. And I believe, yeah, I was 20 years old at the time. And as a 20-year-old, I immediately recognized what a glaring, lack of a better term, ignorance there was in regards to understanding the titling of bank accounts. Most of them obviously are not non-qualified accounts, meaning they're sitting outside of retirement plans and they're not receiving any sort of special tax treatment, obviously. And because of that, most people treat those accounts extremely casually, which that's the real issue. That's the problem. So these accounts are oftentimes misaligned with the rest of the client's estate plan. And many clients have multiple accounts at banks or brokerages, whatever the case may be. They've opened them over the years, many, many, many years ago. In today's time frame, most of them probably open them online. So they have little to no real relationship at that bank. Um, and maybe some still open them up at the branch. And then in regards to the brokerage accounts, they might have five separate brokerage accounts with five separate advisors or more. I've seen it. And then especially in those scenarios, when it comes to beneficiary designations, you'll see that one of three things that happens in those scenarios. First of all, no beneficiary was ever added. Seen that a lot. Or the individuals that were added, they were named years ago and have nothing to do with that client at all today. Or the account doesn't even reflect the trust that they now have in place. So now we have what you might consider to be fragmentation as opposed to coordination. And that's really what you want. That's really what you want with your financial plan is you want everything to coordinate. You want everything to work together as a beautiful machine. And from an estate planning standpoint, There are usually 2 clean options, right? Retitle that account into the trust. So if we have a revocable living trust, that could definitely help avoid probate, obviously, to be able to provide continuity, if they were for some reason to become incapacitated, and keep everything aligned as the trust evolves. And the big advantage there, when the trust gets updated correctly, everything tied to it updates automatically. That's the great thing. So no chasing down individual beneficiary forms, things like that. Now the downside, and that this is unfortunately where a lot of advisors might stop. Banks make this surprisingly difficult, very, very difficult, because, quite frankly, they might be unfamiliar with the trust and the titling of the trust. Paperwork might feel excessive to them. Process is definitely slow and frustrating, and then even more frustrating is it's confusing to the client. And then, so as an advisor, you might back away because of all that frustration. Now, however, this is where you add enormous value, because while the banks struggle with all of this, brokerage accounts for sure, those are your territory. You understand the process, you know how to navigate the paperwork. You could streamline all of this so it actually gets done. Clients don't expect it to be easy. They just want someone that can guide them through it. So be the guide. Um, Option two would be naming individuals as beneficiaries to use transfer on death, payable on death designations. This could work in definitely straightforward situations, and that would avoid probate. But here's the catch: if the estate plan changes later, those beneficiary designations, they won't update automatically. So that's the issue. Right back to where we're at now, at the very beginning of this. So you've just created future maintenance, and if no one owns that process, things are going to fall through the cracks all over again. So here's the question that you as the advisor should be asking that client. So if your estate plan changed tomorrow, would this account still do what you wanted it to do? Most of the time, that answer is no. And that's a client failure. Excuse me. That's not a client failure. That's a systems failure. And as a side note here, obviously, I'm not an estate planning attorney. I'm not an attorney. You want to make sure that all of this is clear with your state. But the thing is that overall, you want to make sure that you're having these conversations with your clients. Um, Real estate, um, mistakes within real estate, those don't show up on statements. Unfortunately, real estate gets much, much more serious, because those will show up in courtrooms and tax bills. And you might feel like adding someone to a deed there with real estate is helpful, but until it isn't. And that's really where we need to make sure that we have our estate plan in place, and we've got everything tied up the way it needs to be there. So if we have any businesses involved, as an example, what if something happens unexpectedly? This is something that we see a lot, unfortunately, in the advisor world. As a financial advisor, if you own your own business, not even taking your client's business into account, but your own business, what if something happens unexpectedly? Seen it time and time again, unfortunately. Who controls it? Who's the one that's going to get the distributions? Who now takes over the firm? Who makes sure your clients are taken care of? That's the same thing for your clients and their businesses. What if something happens unexpectedly? Do they have that all planned out? And unfortunately, without planning, your families, your partners, they're all left in chaos. And unfortunately, that's at a time when clarity is needed most, when we all need to be working together. Life insurance is obviously an easy one. That's easy to fill out. Got the beneficiaries. That's wonderful. Problem with that is easy to forget. I've seen it in my life. My father left a life insurance policy to one of his ex-wives. You see it time and time again. You might see minors named directly. Definitely outdated designations. You see that over and over again. The policy is working great. It's working as it should. It's paying out as it should. However, the outcome isn't working the way it should because we didn't do a good job of updating that designation. And now let's talk about retirement accounts. This is where it can get really, really expensive, um, especially at a time where many folks might need it at a later age in life. Because as you know, with retirement accounts, there are special tax rules, and man, if we missed one of those opportunities, we might create a disaster there within the plan, and you don't want that for sure. Then there are distribution timelines. Are we following them the way we should be? Is the plan following it? Is it easy to follow? Are there any spousal protections that have been put in place? Because the thing is that very rarely do both spouses die at the same time. That means somebody's left with the responsibility, and are they being protected? And the ugly part of this is one wrong designation or one outdated designation can ruin decades of planning. And that's what we're trying to avoid here today. And why do most advisors, excuse me, why do some advisors miss this? It's because beneficiary failures aren't knowledge problems, so to speak, that they are process problems. That's exactly what they are. Beneficiary failures are process problems. Your clients are busy, life events pile up so quickly. I mean, my gosh, they happen overnight, it seems like. And unfortunately, no one is going back to circle around unless something breaks. So the advisors who win long term aren't reactive in these situations. They are very proactive, and I would even call them proactive protectors. That's really what you want to be, is a protector of your client, a protector of their plan. And that's where the advisors that I know that get the most referrals, they're the ones that are doing these steps that we're talking about today. That's where the trust lives, really, truly. And here's what I've learned from all of these years of conversations. Beneficiary designations don't fail because clients don't care. They fail because no one ever created a system for them to review. So there's got to be a system for not only for you, the advisor, to review it, but for your clients to be able to review their own designations. Because once again, as we already said, your clients are busy, and here they thought, man, I just updated my plan. That's the thing that we all think. Well, I just updated it. You take a look, and it's like 7 years ago I updated it. And you know what happens when you updated it 7 years ago? You mentally check that box. You might even celebrate. You might even pat yourself on the back, like, man, look at what I did. I got all this done and I'll never need to look at it again. That's unfortunately the thought process. And then at that point, they probably don't realize that their life insurance still names that ex spouse. The IRA beneficiaries were set clear back in 2003. Maybe even their brokerage account doesn't even have a beneficiary at all because they just did it all online and clicked through the forms. And you know what? I'll get back to that later. We all do that, promise you. And the thing is, that's not really negligence. It's just reality. That's life. This is when you take the opportunity to shine. This is where you come out and with bravado and confidence and say, "This is what I specialize in protecting my clients." This is really where you become more than just the advisor and to become really the protector. So don't treat the beneficiary review like a task. This tasks just sound ugly and boring, and I don't want to do that. Stop. And you need to make sure there's a system in place. Treat it as a system. Make sure you're really, really, truly scheduling beneficiary designation reviews with all of your clients. An actual meeting. Have a checklist in that meeting. Walk through each and all of their accounts. Hopefully, you know where all their money is, where all their accounts are. Make sure we have it all on paper. Make sure we're comparing it to exactly what the client wants to have happen. And here's the thing is I promise you, you're going to find at least one critical misalignment. You're going to find something and they are going to say, "Oh my gosh, thank you, Mrs. Advisor. Without you, that would have been disaster. Holy cow. I can't believe we forgot about that. I cannot believe we did not remember to change that back then." This is what we're talking about. And this is exactly where having the right planning infrastructure really matters because you have to have the right intent. You can ask the right questions. The thing is, like everything else right now, if you don't have the right systems and technology behind it, you're gonna have things still fall through the crack. And this is as a side note, this is exactly why we built our enhanced planning system because it's really designed to do two things really well, extremely well, actually. First, obviously, it's designed to attract new prospects because what we're talking about today is beneficiary, estate alignment issues. Those are powerful conversations, and not a lot of folks out there are having those conversations. So when you can bring to surface these blind spots, the the prospect is no longer going to see you as just the product advisor. They're going to see you, more importantly, as a problem solver. And the second thing is, it's going to create a smoother experience for your existing clients. The system itself helps you make smarter document decisions, track reviews, flag life event triggers, and more importantly, going to keep everything organized over time. So, as opposed to just relying on memory or sticky notes or whatever the case may be, or hoping it comes up in a conversation, you've got a repeatable process that supports you, supports your client, your team, and you all know this. The best advisor, they aren't the ones that wait for problems to show up. They find trigger points throughout their process to make sure that you are reminding your clients to review beneficiaries in events when they might inherit an account, when they open a new account, if a spouse unfortunately passes away, when their children become adults. Maybe you don't like their spouse. Happens, especially when a revocable trust is credited or updated. That's not over servicing. That's leadership, right? That's what we're talking about. How to be a leader, not just a protector, but a leader. And the questions don't have to be complicated. Ask things like, "Hey, when was the last time we reviewed all your beneficiaries? Has anything changed in your family or your health or your business that we need to know about? Do these beneficiaries still reflect your intent today?" Really simple questions, but with very powerful outcomes, right? And when you do things like this consistently, your clients will feel like they're being seen, they're being heard, they're a part of the process. Your problems are going to get fixed very quietly. Emergencies will be non-events, really. You're going to see your trust deepen with your clients. Your referrals definitely increase because here's the thing, clients don't just appreciate performance. They definitely appreciate the performance of their accounts. What they really truly want is proactive care. And when you provide proactive care, that's when the referrals just shoot through the roof. That's when your clients can't wait to scream and shout your name. And this is just such a powerful episode. And it's something to where I know everyone's thinking, okay, how do I get this started? And I know I need to be doing this more intentionally. I'm not really sure where to start. I've got something practical for you to be able to take advantage of. It's available on my website. It's a really simple uh, beneficiary review framework. And it's not only going to help you, the advisor, turn these conversations into a repeatable system, but it's going to make it very proactive for you. And I hate to use the term, but turnkey. So it'll immediately walk you through the five account types that fail most often, the exact questions to ask your clients, how to compare intent versus reality. That's something that you want to have clear distinction on. And like I said, how to build this into your ongoing review process. So it's an automatic thing. So if you want a copy of this, head out to the website, which is simply evolvewithgradient.com/ace team. Once again, evolvewithgradient.com/ace team and request the beneficiary review framework. Very straightforward, advisor friendly. It's definitely designed to help you protect your clients because that's really what we want, and protect them before problems show up at the worst possible time. Um, and I like to throw out these challenges. It's been great to hear the feedback on these challenges. So in the next 30 days, ask those questions that we laid out there in the framework. Be sure to review the accounts. Don't make assumptions. Review all the beneficiaries. Once again, compare the intent versus reality. That's a big one. Make sure that you are clearly documenting any gaps, and then build a process. Build your own process. Um, like we said earlier, your clients aren't going to refer you just based off of your returns alone. They are referring that advisor that uh, prevents the mistakes that they never saw coming. And that's really my joy in all of this, to hear from my advisors and their success when they are able to prevent those mistakes, and hear from their clients of, wow, thank you. I didn't even see that. Thank you so much for that support. And along those same lines, but before we wrap up, can't believe it's already time to wrap up. I want to speak to you directly, to those advisors listening today. Um, thank you. Thank you for the responsibility that you carry. Thank you for those conversations that aren't easy. Thank you for protecting the families within your communities, especially those that don't even know that they need the protection yet. That your work matters, and the details that you're involved in matter more than most people realize. And I get it. Most people don't even understand what it is that you do. And beneficiary forms may look simple, uh, but guess what? The outcomes that they control, they are not simple. Um, if you appreciated today's episode and you thought it brought you some value, like the episode, follow the podcast. We're on all the platforms out there: the TikToks, the Facebooks, the LinkedIn's, Instagram, all that good stuff. Be sure to share it with another advisor who needs to hear this message. Share it with your team. Let them hear it. It definitely helps us reach more advisors for sure. We want to make sure that everybody's committed to doing this work the right way, obviously. This has been Unfiltered and Unstoppable. I'm Rob Romesburg. Stay intentional, stay proactive, and keep building a practice that protects what matters most. And we'll see you next time on Unfiltered and Unstoppable.